I've been hiding a secret. One I can't even reveal to my beloved mate. On this mysterious night, as my love is about to be crowned king of the werewolves, a dangerous enemy appears, hinting at a greater threat to come. I stand on the edge of loyalty and betrayal, not only guarding my secret but also protecting the one I love. 16. Cast IL. I'm intrigued honestly. I haven't seen Tommy since his incident. Not because I didn't want to. Really, that kid is adorable. I've just been busy, I guess. It's a coincidence, however. The fact that Tom and Jason know each other. The city isn't that big, but still they know each other and seem close. What worries me is the fact that Tommy is a werewolf, which means that Jason is either a shifter to a family friend. Wolves by nature live in tight and strong communities of members that they call a pack, and even thought that they are friendly. They don't get really close to other species unless if a couple of stuff happen. I don't know as much as I'd like to know about werewolves. I know that they have an alpha, a beta and sometimes a gamma, and that they live in packs. Note to self, ask Jason, how do they know each other? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I regret yelling at him so much. I was having a bad day and just threw my anger at him. He was trying to look out for me and I just snapped. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Maria, I'm going out. I don't know when I'll be back, I said while peeking my head through the kitchen door. She's baking cookies with chocolate chips. Another emergency, she said, concerned, glancing at me and carefully removing the cookies from the oven. Nope. I'm just going to a friend's house. Tommy will be there. Remember him? I asked while eyeing the mouth-watering pieces of heaven that were now resting on a plate. Of course I do. The wind element, right? I nodded while inhaling the cookie's scent. Okay, time to test my sharp and abilities. In a fraction of a second, I ran to the other side of the kitchen and grabbed a cookie and came back to my initial spot. Hey. I felt the wind pass me, Maria said while glaring at me. I smiled sheepishly at her. Be careful to not burn yourself. It might be still too hot, she said with care. She truly is a fairy godmother by heart. My eyes, however, glowed, showing my inner hell spirit. But fire can't get burned. My voice sounded terrifyingly different. It was sickly sweet and held venom, if that was even possible. It's smooth like a succubus, but intended and disturbing like a demon. I shook my head and pressed a hand to my forehead. Maria, I miss, so sorry, I croaked out, looking at a shocked Maria. Her face was pale and her eyes held fear. I didn't like seeing her like this. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I asked softly and ashamed. Hearing my tone must have clicked something in her. It's okay, Miss Morningstar. You are still adapting to the new energy. You will snap at little things. It's normal, she said cautiously, trying to not piss me off. Morningstar. No, that's Dad's last name. He ran our fine cast IL Jones. Jones. Not Morningstar. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You rhyme, Miss Jones. And since when do you not call me by my first name? It's me, Cast IL, I said desperately. I'm sorry, Cast IL. I don't know, it felt like I was talking to the devil himself, she said, shaking her head while whispering. I grimaced. Bad choice of words. I nodded and made my way towards the exit, still throwing a worried glance back at the small woman in the kitchen. I left the house and grabbed my car, remembering the address that Tommy told me through our phone call. I did all the turns and curves until I reached the woods, slowing down a bit to avoid killing any animal that could be passing by. I came face to face to a huge house. Okay, not huge. Bigger. Much bigger than a huge house. It looked like it could fit 5 people in it. A churning feeling came upon my stomach. This looks like a house where a pack would live in a pack house. I didn't have time to knock on the door because it swung open as soon as I reached it. There stood an anxious-looking Tommy. I crouched down and gave him a playful grin. Stay ill. He squealed while throwing himself at me. I giggled and hugged him. You look even more pretty than the last time I saw you, he whispered in my ear. I chuckled and kissed him on the cheek while blushing at his compliment. Thank you, Tommy, I whispered back. What about me? I want a hug too. I heard a deep voice coming from the huge living room. I pulled away from Tommy and blushed while staring at a really good-looking Jason. I heard the door close behind me and then saw Tommy running and jumping on the couch. I laughed and followed him. I didn't make it too far, since a pair of arms wrapped themselves around my waist and pulled me towards a rock-hard chest. I told you I wanted a hug, I heard him said in the top of my head. If I was red before then, I might be even purple now. I softly wrapped my arms around his big figure. It was pure bliss. His warm body just molded perfectly with my small figure. After a minute or so we pulled away. He looked down at me and smiled softly. I smiled back and saw something flashing through his eyes. In that moment I knew that we had already forgiven each other, and that everything was going to be okay. Let's play style. I heard an excited Tommy yelling from the couch. I laughed and joined the happy child. Jason walking right behind me. After hours of Legos being thrown, PlayStation games being yelled at, and play, though getting stuck on the ceiling, we decided to just sit down and eat a snack while watching SpongeBob SquarePants on the television. Then my self-notes came down onto me. So how do you guys know each other? I asked while popping a pretzel in my mouth. Tom is Axel's little brother. Jason replied, his eyes still glued to the screen. I stopped chewing my pretzel. Axel is a werewolf. Oh my god, is the rest of the group also a group of shifters? Isabella. William. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said, still processing the information. I sat straighter and Jason must have sensed my sudden change of mood because his head snapped towards me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Do you live in here? I asked. No. A sense of relief filled me in. Not permanently, only until I finish high school. Why, he asked, looking curious. Nothing, is just that this house looks terribly huge for only one person, I said, trying to not sound suspicious. However, he must have caught on that something was wrong because he visibly stiffed. I don't live in here alone. 966 of the teenagers that frequent our school live in here too. It's kindy of a community, he said proudly. That school. Like a pack. This is a pack house, I said boldly. What? He asked shockingly. It's an analogy. You could say that I like wolves, I said, testing the waters. His eyes bright at my words. Oh my. I looked to my left where an attentive Tom stood watching our interaction. He understood what I was trying to know from the look in his face. Our eyes locked and I gave him a desperate look. He looked at Jason, then at his hands while ever so softly nodding his head. My heart stopped. They were all werewolves. How did I not notice this earlier? Is this why you hate Aramis E? I whispered, looking at Jason dead in the eye, daring him to lie in my face. He looked utterly shocked for saying, at least do werewolves and vampires really hate each other that much? I asked, mumbling. How the fuck do you know this? He said, gripping at the ends of the couch. I'm not stupid and I've known Aramis ED my whole life. He told me about the supernatural world. I quickly lied. He gritted his teeth and growled. I took a glance at Tom, who was looking scared. I smiled softly at him and nodded at him to go. Without waiting a second, he took off and went upstairs, where I presume that it's the bedroom's location. Why have you been avoiding the mate bond then? Jason asked lowly. Mate bond? I asked, intrigued. The bond between mates. Do you know what a mate is? He asked softly. Of course I know what a soulmate is, but instead of replying him that, I simply shook my head. No. Mates are a short term for soulmates. Two persons made for each other. They complete one another. It's a work made by the moon goddess herself. A blessing even. A mate is person that you cherish and love with your whole heart, mind and soul. It's beautiful. Not once removing his from my face. Then it clicked. Wait, we are mate. That's you and me. I looked at him, eyes wide open. He nodded and smiled while pulling me in his lap. I looked up at him, at his eyes, trying to find any trace of lie. I found none. 17 Jason. Having your mate in your arms can be defined by pure bliss. My angel knew about the supernatural world. It was relief in a way, but to say that I was shocked was an understatement. I had hoped that she already knew, but a part of me felt like it should have been us to tell her. Not him. Castiel was looking at me in the eyes. For what reason I don't know. But I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't like it. In fact, I loved it. She may not realize this, but while she's looking at my orbs, I'm also looking into hers. And let me tell you, she has the most gorgeous pair of I've ever seen. They look so pure and have that special glint in them, especially when she smiles. I love her smile, and her laugh, and her cute giggles. And I also love it when she crunches her nose when she cringes at something. It's cute and funny. She's perfect. Various minutes have passed and we still haven't changed our positions. Suddenly a grin broke in my face. She's not scared nor mad. She's still here. She unconsciously smiled softly back until she snapped from her trance. We are mates? She asked softly again. I replied with a nod while taking her hand in mine and smiling down at her. She gasped. She mumbled cutely. I let out a chuckle while my wolf was jumping inside me, happy that our mate acknowledged the mate bond. She smiled. Well, now that you know everything, I want to ask you a favor, I said with a serious face. She frowned and started wiggling out of my lap, to which I didn't allow her to. I pulled her back to me and tightened my hold on her. This may sound extreme, but my parents happen to be the queen and the king of the werewolf world. I was supposed to be crowned king when I turned 18, but because of recent events I'm being crowned at the end of the week. And I know that this is a lot to take in, but I would love if you were able to be there. She froze at my request. Silence filled the room. At the castle. Who will be there? What event? Yes, a castle. I can pick you up if you want. All the packs of all around the world will be there, alongside with some messengers of the moon goddess and leaders of other supernatural creatures. About your last question, we are not quite sure yet. Let's just say that my father was possessed by a demon. But don't worry, he's completely normal now. Apparently two guys came and unsaved everyone. We think that they were sent from the moon goddess as a message that it was time to pass the legacy. I answered her. I didn't expect, however, to see the mortified expression that rested on her face. She even looked pale. Castiel, are you okay? I asked, concerned now. I brushed some hairs away from her face. She shook her head and replied, I'm sorry, but I can't go. Why, is it because of the demon thing? It's all solved, don't worry. Or is it because of the amount of people? I'll be there with you, I said, trying to convince her. I want my parents unpacked to officially meet her. It's just her stuff to do, she replied, looking away. Okay, there was obviously a lie. I cupped her face with my hands gently. Castiel, look at me please, I pleaded softly. She complied and looked me in the eye. If she wasn't my mate and human, it would have been taken as a challenge. Please do it, I begged her. She just kept staring at me. I'll think about it, she answered lowly. I nodded. She will at least consider it. I should go back home now. Maria is probably worried it's getting late. She said suddenly. No. It's way too soon, I wanted to say, but instead I replied with a small okay. I'll see you tomorrow at school, she said, getting up. I got up as well and started following her like a lost puppy. She went upstairs to say goodbye to Tommy, who, may I add, was as sad that she was leaving as me. I guided her to the door and hugged her. I hugged her as if the world was about to end, to which she giggled. A final touch, I kissed her on the forehead once, Twice. She blushed as a response. I watched her car drive away from the pack house perimeter, my heart aching. Stop being a wuss, I mumbled to myself. I closed the door and went to my room. Turning the light on, I started packing my school bag for tomorrow. That was until I noticed a note laying on my bed. 29 days to go. A growl ripped out of my chest and I let Basil take over. We shifted and started trashing the room. Lamps being thrown at the wall as well my secretary table. But that one brought attention of outsiders. Axel entered in the room. Jason, calm down. I growl at him. Alpha, think of Castael, would she like to see you like this? He said more out outly. Basil whimpered at the mention of our mate. I decided then to shift back and throw on some clothes. Get Melinda in the dungeons. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylin Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Calm down and tell me what happened. He's trying to be rational. This is why I'm pointing him out as my future beta. That bitch left this note in my room, in my bed. I yelled while shoving the piece of paper into his chest. He read and looked at me with a confused expression. 2 days ago she threatened me, saying that she asked the elders to summon the moon goddess to punish Castael because of the lack of respect that she showed to Tiffany when my mate humiliated and threatened her in front of the whole school. She said that she can call it off if I stopped interacting with Castael, and that is not an option. Obviously, the punishment will occur in 29 days. I explained. He started understanding my rage and even growled deeply at the threat that bitch made. His wolf already started seeing Castael as his Luna and Queen. He's getting protective, and that made me proud. Castael knows that we are werewolves. I dropped the bomb right after. Axel looked at me with eyes wide open. How did she react? Did you tell her? He asked with an almost unappeasable smile. She already knew about the supernatural world, and she also had her suspects about us being werewolves. I only confirmed it and told her that we were mates, which she also reacted positively. I said with a soft smile, forgetting about Melinda the bitch for a second. Congrats, bro, he said, patting my back. I nodded at him as a thank you. Then I looked at the piece of paper that was in his hand and rage filled me in again. Now, get Melinda in the dungeons and meet me there. 18. Castael. Mating process when a male werewolf finds a potential mate. His body releases a powering mechanism from his voice that has the power to encourage or seduce the mate in question to want to be closer to the male. The mate in question has to be close to the male, emotionally and physically, for it to work. However, a female werewolf's body prepares itself at a certain age to attract a male wolf's. Her hair grows longer, she gets taller, and her bust gets bigger. This is what's known as the mating age. When werewolves mate fully, they start mating more often. Belief system: werewolves have the belief of a soul mate, a perfect other half, a counterpart to their soul, created by the moon goddess herself. They take this very seriously, as it is hard to find your soul mate, and it's very lucky if you do. The elders and adults expect younger wolves to obey and follow every rule, to control the younger generation, as well as to make sure bloodlines stay completely pure. This is expressed through arranged marriages. If they don't follow through with the commitments parents have set up, they look down upon, for a werewolf must never put someone else before their own kind. So Aura is behind this. I guess I'll have a conversation with her later. Then the doorbell sounded. Closing the internet page, I stood up and walked towards the entrance. The door was already open, and one of the maids was talking with the person who still was outside. Thank you, Claire. You can let him in, I said, smiling towards the red-headed woman. She bowed, smiling back, and then proceeded to go back to where she came from. Probably the kitchen. I know that Devil wears Prada and all, but I never expected to see his daughter living in a huge mansion full of maids. Arama's teased. Don't you have a funny personality for a half-dead person? I teased back. Touch, he smirked while making his way inside the house. I closed the door behind us and led him towards the office. We walked side by side in silence. Not a weird kind of silence. It was silence. At least for me. We walked through the big black doors and settled down. I sat down in my father's chair that was slightly taller than the chair that Rama's ED was sitting on right in front of me. So let's cut the chit, chat, I said with a knowing smile. He nodded and started the questions. Everyone in both heaven and hell are anxious to know about your well-being after the Vertity and Ignis. He stated I lowered my head and got it right back up slowly as a sign for him to keep on in respect. And they have questions. Aramas Ed continued while retrieving a black small book with the holy gold stamp on it. I kept watching him passing by the yellow pages until he stopped. Modifications report. Higher senses. Telekinesis. Healing in fraction of seconds and higher appearance appeal. That's all that I discovered for now, I said, remembering the bathroom incident. He simply nodded. It's estimated for you to gain at least 7 new or updated modifications and powers. My eyes widened. 7 is a lot, even for mythological creatures. And how are you really feeling? He asked with a glint of concern swelling in his orbs. I feel tired. Honestly, I confessed with a sigh. He smiled softly. It'll get better, Cast-il. He comforted me by patting my head. I surely do hope so, I replied with a frown. So you and Jason, huh? What about me and Jason? I asked, trying to pretend that I was confused. Oh, don't give me that look. We both know why he got all possessive over you. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Noble, hearts out saints your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Yeah, he told me yesterday about us being mates. Right after I confronted him about him being a werewolf. I told him. He cringed though. That must have been weird. I chuckled while muttering a yeah. I shook my head. He wants me to be present at his coronation at the castle. With thousands of people, including his parents. People that already know the true me. Aramas Ed got straighter after hearing those words. Cast-il, you are required to go there. I frowned at him in confusion. You are mate, and this big event will most likely unlock some of your new adaptations. It's important for you to go. Besides, the coronation only happens once in his lifetime. Look, I may not be a big fan of the guy, but these kind of stuff are really serious for werewolves and it would mean a lot to him. Aramas Ed shared while giving me a serious and sincere look. And right there I decided my answer to Jason's request. He then proceeded to ask all of the questions as I kept answering to all of them. The bell rang and I gathered my maths books and stood up ready to walk out of the classroom. After walking for a few minutes I finally arrived to my locker. I took a moment to look at the rusty red color. It still had the dent that I gave it days ago. But then again I didn't expect it to be gone. I also noticed that the locker made a squeaky sound when you opened slowly. It was an awful sound. It even hurt my sensitive ears. Why am I examining my locker again? Oh yeah, I don't have anything else to do. Right. I was inwardly laughing at my weirdness when I felt a pair of arms wrap themselves around my waist. And from the sparks that surged from the touch I immediately knew who it was. I turned around and smiled at Jason, who, once having noticed my smile, grinned adorably at me. I shook my head with a blush endearing my cheeks. He pulled me into a hug and kissed the top of my head. Good morning, mate. He mumbled in my brown hair, emphasizing the word mate. I laughed at him. Good morning for you too, mate. I imitated him, putting the emphasizing tone in the word mate as well. Something flashed in his beautiful blue orbs that made him smile even more. If that was possible. Oh my god. They look so cute. Bella yelled from the end of the hallway while pointing at me and Jason, making everyone in there to look at her and then at us. A cloud of murmurs and whispers settled upon the entire school. Soon the rest of the group was in front of my locker and greeted us and congratulated us. I told them that I knew about them being werewolves, to which they all froze and apologized for hiding such secret, especially Isabella. Axa, however, looked like he already knew everything, offering me a small smile. We had our laughs and chats until Elijah asked the question, So Cast-il, are you coming to the coronation? It's tomorrow night. 19. Jason. Everyone was waiting for her answer. It was really important, crucial even, for her to come. not only as my mate, but also as the future queen. She smiled her breathtaking smile and replied, "Sure," while nodding. I could feel a grin adorning my face. Basil was excited and couldn't stop howling in my mind. I grabbed her by the waist, pulling her close and placed a gentle kiss in her forehead, muttering a small thank you, making her blush. "Have you shopped at Rest yet?" Isabella asked excitedly. "No, but I have a few dresses that I have yet to put on for the first time in my closet," Castiel replied, shrugging. Isabella pouted but suddenly grinned like a matter woman. "Good, that means that you can come with me and help me to pick a dress for myself," she planned. Castiel laughed and shook her head. "Sure, why not?" She smiled at Isabella, and then the bell rang and everyone parted their ways. I decided to escort Castiel to her class. When we were alone by the classroom door, I looked at her with gentleness. "Thank you for accepting my invitation. It means a lot to me. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I told her softly. "No problem. I was eating sure but Rama's convinced me to go. He told me how important this kindy of events are for you werewolves," she stated happily. I, on the other hand, didn't feel so happy anymore. "Arama's Edie. You met him yesterday after leaving my house?" I asked, trying to control my anger. "Oh yeah, we had some stuff to talk about. He needed some updates on a thing that my father is working on," she replied nonchalantly. "He works for your dad?" I asked, curious. "Yes yet no. It's complicated," she said, avoiding my gaze. I nodded, pretending to understand what she meant. I kissed her in the top of her head and wished a good class. It was a warm afternoon. Not excessively heated air, but the breeze was a little hot. It was a nice afternoon. In fact, today has been a nice day. Castiel and I are great. Tomorrow is my coronation and she'll be there. School wasn't as annoying as it usually is in Naomi, and the boys are hanging out at the pack house. "Ethan, shoot the damn guy." Axel yelled at Ethan. "Unfucking trying, Axel." He yelled back. "Run back to the base. Don't get killed." Elijah yelled at both of them. "Oh shit. Axel, I need backup," Ethan said, slapping Axel's arm. "Shut up, I have 3 guys on my back," Elijah retorted. "I could be more faster and help you both if Ethan didn't let escape the dude that I told him to kill." Axel screeched. Yes, screeched. You see, video games can change a guy's personality in a completely different way. That's exactly what's happening right now. I'm sitting on the couch sorting some business emails and specific invitations for the future event, while the guys are playing what I think that is Call of Duty. We'll wait with Isabella and Castiel dress shopping, and he's keeping me updated of everything. "I'm starving," Ethan suddenly said. "Yeah, I'm hungry too," Elijah agreed. Axel just nodded. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. "Well, I could eat something now too," I gave in while standing up. "Let's go to Daisy's cafe." Everyone cheered and got up as well. Grabbing my car keys, I walked outside, bringing my phone with me as well, and waited for the guys inside my car's driver's seat. For a bunch of dudes, they sure take a while to get ready to go out like a bunch of girls. No offense to the ladies. 7 minutes later, everyone was inside the car. Seat belts buckled. Ready and set to go. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Who sat next to me turned on the radio in Which to Bury Us or The Hatchet by Reliant K. He of course turned up the volume, making me wince, so I reduced it to tolerable. "You are no fun, Jason," Ethan pouted from the back seat. I rolled my eyes as a reply. I bet if it was Castiel choosing the song, he would put it so loud that the speakers would explode just to make her notice him. Elijah muttered and everyone went in a round of laughs. I growled at Eli and turned off the radio. A wave of Ohan boost resonated through the car. "We are here, idiots," I said, shaking my head, and chuckled when they rose their eyebrows. Like a flash, everyone exited the car and entered the cafe. There was bell on the door that rang through the whole place. I looked around and smiled. This was the very first cafe I visited outside the castle. There were booths and tables scattered around the vintage room. We sat down on a table next to the window and picked up the menu that was laying lonely on the wooden surface. A waitress came with a notepad and a pen in her hand. "Good afternoon, handsome, what can I get you today?" she asked with a warm smile. I smiled back at her welcoming tone and looked at name tag where Adelina was written in a cursive calligraphy. "I'll have a coffee and a toast, please." I ordered and looked at the guys who quickly stated their orders. She finished writing everything down and smiled at us. "My co-worker will be back with your orders in a few." With that she left. She has black hair with a few strands of white hair already forming. She has a few wrinkles from her agent's small dark circles, but always kept the welcoming, family-like smile. We started chatting about the upcoming test next week, when my phone started beeping indicating that I had just received a message. I shrugged it, not bothering checking it out just yet. The new waitress came with our orders and the phone kept beeping. "This one for you. This is yours. Another, and finally this one." She delivered them, mine being the last. She then bent down towards me and gave me a flirty smile. "What's your name, handsome?" She batted her eyelashes. I replied coldly. She shrugged and my phone beeped again. "If I were you, I would check my phone. Who knows for how much longer you are taken." She winked and rushed out of the table. I quickly grabbed my phone and froze in my seat. There flashed a message with a few attachments. 28 days to go. I quickly opened the attachments and my blood started boiling. There were 28 photos of Castiel in the mall shopping with Isabella. 3 of the photos had a gun in front of the screen, meaning that the person that was following them was armed. I kept scrolling the photos and there was one picture that made me stand up. Will and Isabella were both passed out in front of the camera and Castiel was on the background looking lost while the gun was now pointing at her. "Jason, what's wrong?" Axel rushed, worried. "Castiel." Isabella and William followed. "Isabella and William are passed out, we need to go to the mall now. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milgan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My beast was urging me to come out and destroy everything, but I kept it for when we captured the fucker that is trying to hurt my mate. We entered the car and sped up to the mall. 20 Castiel. I could feel someone's gaze burning our backs. Their footsteps had the exact same pace as ours. If we walked a bit slower they would too. The same if we picked up the pace. The same turns and stops were made by them. They were definitely following us. I could feel Isabella's uneasiness and William's clenched jaw was visible. I decided to take matters from my own hands and got myself alone to take care of our loving followers. "Hey, you guys can go to the car. I need to go to the bathroom quickly," I said, smiling at them. "We will come with you," Isabella said immediately. "There's no need. You guys go put the bags in the car, I won't take too much time, I swear," I said, slowly distancing myself from them. "Castiel, I didn't want to tell you needs so that you wouldn't freak out, but..." He lowered his voice and whispered, "We are being followed." I smiled and replied in the same tone. "I know. If we separate they will be confused and we will have more chance of getting away on time." I explained. "I don't think that's a good idea. They can follow us and you at the same time. And we can't afford getting you hurt," William said. Isabella nodded, agreeing with him. "William, please. I'm your alpha's mate. Don't I have some kind of power over you?" I pleaded. "Of course, but Castiel, this is dangerous. Jason would key. I command you both to escape and go to the car." I cut him off with a serious expression. They both lowered their heads in submission and walked towards the parking lot without looking back. I could hear Isabella whispering softly, "Be careful." Taking a sharp turn and hiding behind a tree, I caught our followers from behind and grabbed both of them, dragging them behind a shoe shop. "Who are you?" I asked harshly, each of them in both my hands, their heads against the cold concrete wall. They kept silent. Something inside me burned at being ignored. I used my super strength and pushed them against a wall once again, causing their heads to bleed slightly with new cuts. "I'm me Rickand and H, he's Rob," but Tarek finally replied, stuttering. Pleased with the answer, I kept going. "Why were you following us?" I asked, narrowing my eyes at them, daring them to lie in my face. "She ordered us." We didn't have a choice, Robert said, gasping for air as I tightened the grip of my hand around the throat sheet. Who is she? We don't know, Robert answered. My fingers started stinging and something whispered in my olai. Clenching my hands once more, I repeated, I want the truth. Who is she? I said deadly, my eyes turning an orange color. They both let out a gasp at my eyes. Why you are you Reynard H. Human, Robert stuttered. His face was stricken horror. Who is she? I asked one last time, pressing my fingers in their weak spots of their necks. She will kill us, please don't. I have a kid, Eric pleaded, tears falling off his eyes. At the mention of a child, I let them go. I shook my head and looked at my hands. Why am I losing control like this? I whispered, looking at their purple marks around their necks. I took a step forward to cure their bruises, but they quickly walked backwards, hitting their backs on the wall. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They were afraid, and I felt guilty. I won't hurt you. I can make that go away. Let me help, I asked them softly, letting my angelic aura out. They slowly came towards me and I gently grabbed their necks. Taking out my pocket knife, I made small cuts in my fingers. They looked at me horrified. No, stop. Dawn. As soon as my bloody fingers touched their bruised necks, the blood turned gold and I slowly massaged their marks, making them disappear, and relief filled their faces. After a few tries of them, moving their heads and touching their no longer existent injuries, they thanked me. You can't tell anyone that it was us who told you this. But there are more. There were assigned 3 people. The other guy is Jared, he's waiting near your car. My eyes widened and I sprinted towards the parking lot, running fast, ignoring the looks that people were giving me, feeling the fresh and harsh breeze against my face. When I arrived, I started looking around, lost. Where were they? Suddenly I heard the sound of a camera going off a few feet away from me and decided to follow it. Slowly and as soundlessly as possible, I tried to sneak in and see who it was. As I started approaching the local where the sound came out, I realized that whoever Jared was, he was hiding behind Will's car. I saw the guy that I assumed that is Jared got up ready to leave, so I decided to stop him. Hey you, stop right there, I shouted and started running after him. Then he pulled out what looked like a stone and disappeared right in front of me. Magic. He used magic to get away. I ran back towards Isabella and William, who were still laying down on the cold ground. I got my hands on their foreheads, trying to look for big injuries not visible to the eye or poisoning. I let out a breath of relief when I sensed that they were just asleep. Taking out my pocket knife again, I made small cuts on my fingers and healed some scratches and bruises that covered their bodies, including William's busted lip. They looked a little better and I started to try to put them up and inside of the car when I was suddenly pulled in a warm embrace. But from the tingling sensation, I recognized him immediately. I snuggled a bit further in his chest and I could feel him inhaling my scent as he muttered a few sweet words. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They shall calm down, princess. The boys are already putting them in the car. I nodded. God, you are never getting out of my sight ever again, Jason mumbled in the top of my head. I kept silent when I felt my feet leaving the ground and I let out a small squeal. He chuckled and kissed my nose with me in his arms. You are adorable. I smiled shyly at him and softly kissed his cheek, seeing a small blush fall over his face. You too. I smiled at him. You're so soft. 21. Jason. My cheek tingled where Castiel kissed me. It felt like heaven. With her still in my arms, I opened the car door and got in, closing the door after getting settled and with my mate in my lap. My wolf was as satisfied as I was and continued to check our mate for any injuries. Jason, you were the one who drove us here, Ethan said in a tone, and you will be the one driving us home, I answered in the same tone. Everyone in the car turned to look at me with eyes wide open. Oh yeah, Axa, you will be driving us home. I decided, realizing how much of a mistake would it be if we let Ethan drive the car. Ethan pouted and handed Axel the keys in defeat, making everyone in the car laugh. After a few minutes of small talk and silence, we arrived at the pack house, and my little mate had fallen asleep on me. I smiled at how precious she was. Right now she looked like an angel. While I carried her in my arms, I looked behind to see William stirring up from his sleep. He looked around confused for a second, and then realization finally fell upon him, and he looked around panicked for Isabella, but he quickly calmed down when he saw her sleeping in the car seat. Without thinking twice, he picked her and took her to the pack house. I checked that everything was in order before entering in the house myself. Curating still in my arms. She must be exhausted. Kissing her forehead, I closed the door behind me and made way upstairs. We will talk about this tomorrow. Everyone go to rest. It has been a tiring day for all of us, I stated using my alpha tone. Everyone nodded and did as I said. Sighing, I opened my bedroom's door and put my angel in my bed. I laid down beside her and turned off the light. When darkness engulfed us, I pulled her closer and took in her relaxing scent. Light hits my eyes and I easily open them, and when I do, I come face to face with the most beautiful view ever. My gorgeous mate was looking at me softly and smiling that beautiful smile of hers, her head resting on my chest. Her eyes were still a little bit closed, so I could tell that she woke up just a few seconds before me. "Good morning," I greeted her, nuzzling her hair with my nose. She giggled adorably at my action and greeted back. "Good morning," she said cutely. My cheeks hurt from smiling so much, but I couldn't help myself around this girl. I kissed her nose as she smiled before snuggling closer to under my chin. "To my agent extraordinaire, my Nobel. Hearts out, thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. This is heaven." And with that thought, I let myself fall asleep again. When I opened my eyes for the second time this morning, I felt cold and quickly got up. I looked around searching for Curating and started panicking when I found no trace of her. I sprinted downstairs where everyone was having breakfast. "Where's Curating?" I asked, almost yelling. "She went home. She had some stuff to do before starting to get ready for tonight," Isabella replied while munching on her eggs. A sense of relief washed over me. But a few seconds later I broke into a cold sweat, remembering that tonight I'll step on the throne and be declared king. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't nervous. Becoming a king comes with a lot of responsibility. And to be honest, I'm afraid. I'm scared that I won't be a good alpha king. Millions of lives from tonight on will be in my hands, and I don't know if I will be able to handle it. But I have faith, because I have my mate with me, and she will for sure help me in every step of this new lifestyle. "Sit down and eat, Jason. You look like you are about to faint or something," Elijah said while pulling a chair out for me to sit. I mumbled a thanks and started to eat. I looked around while pouring some orange juice on my glass, and I locked eyes with William. Memories from last afternoon came flying to my mind. "So I think we should talk about what happened yesterday." Silence. Everyone went silent. The only noise that was heard was my chewing while I ate my toast. I looked pointedly at Isabella and she sighed. "So we were shopping. Nothing weird in that. But then two guys came out of the nowhere and started to follow us everywhere. Every turn. Every store. They would be there, right behind us." She started. When we were about to leave, Cal said that she needed to go to the bathroom. We both insisted to go with her, but she refused. I decided to tell her that we were being followed and that would not be a good idea to split. To my surprise, she told us that she already knew that we were being followed and used her lunatone to order us to go to the car and leave her behind. William continued, guilt filling his eyes. "We swear we tried to stop her, Jason, but we can't retaliate with her lunatone. She told us that she would take care of it and ordered us to go to the car for safety." Isabella added, "She did take care of it though. When we were exiting the mall, no one was following us anymore," William said. "But then a guy came out of the nowhere and jumped on us. Will fought him. I remember him getting a busted lip and bruises, and I remember screaming for help when I was injected with the sleeping dart. That's the weird part. We woke up with no bruises and no pain. Even with werewolf healing, it would take a while to regenerate because of the venom injected on us." Isabella finished. "I remember feeling tingles on my injuries. I thought that it was the blood drying but realized that they were the injuries healing. Will mumbled. Taking all the information in, I nodded. I want you to describe the men that were following you and answer some questions tomorrow. Today it's going to be a tiring day as well, and I don't want any of you getting stressed over it. It's 8:00 p.m. now, and I am already at the castle. The coronation starts at 9:30 p.m. since it's where the moon will be on point for the ceremony to start. Even though it's early, people are already coming in. At least 11 packs are already here, including mine. I'm impatiently waiting for Castiel to come, because I can't stop pacing back and forth and making sure that everything is fine. Only she is able to calm me down. Son, don't stress over it. Everything will go just fine, my father reassured while patting my back. My sister, Madison, was sitting beside my mom, and they both looked beautiful. My mom was dressed in a dark blue Queen's official attire, with her high crown shining and standing proud. Madison was in an official attire as well, with a yellow gown, and she looked like the little princess that she is. I smiled at them, and my mom grinned at me, and my sister gave me a forced smile, knowing that we were in public and that she needed to act polite and strict. Mom took her medication to contain her disease for a few hours, so she acted like the mom that I always knew and grew up with. The problem with those drugs were that after the effects were out, she blacks out completely for days and more. So we always avoid giving her that. Suddenly the whole place went silent and gasps were heard. Everyone turned their heads to the main doors, and I made my way towards them to check what was happening. People cleared out of my way with every step that I took, and when I finally saw the reason behind all this euphoria, I couldn't help but let myself gasp as well. There stood my beautiful angel with a blood-red dress that made her look like an actual goddess. It hugged every perfect curve of hers and made her look dreamy. Her hair was pulled up in a hairstyle that I couldn't describe nor identify, but it sure looked beautiful and showed off her beautiful bare collarbone near the place where she would have my mark. On her neck there was a golden necklace with a golden rose. That was the symbol that was stamped on the bag that Mayu retrieved from Castiel's father's office. When she met my gaze, she smiled and walked towards me, and whispers started to fill the room. Every pair of eyes was set on us. I took her hand in mine and kissed it softly. You look absolutely stunning and beautiful, like a goddess, I told her softly. She froze for a little bit, but then her cheeks warmed as she blushed. Thank you. You look really stunning and handsome, like a god, she replied softly. I chuckled at her little joke and then kissed her on the forehead, making people stare at us with eyes wide open. But right now I don't care. I only cared for the beautiful girl that was right in front of me. Come with me. I want you to meet my parents, I said while grabbing her hand. 22, Castiel. Maria helped me getting ready. That's all I have to say. She styled me like she used to style my mom to get ready to the most important events with other high members of the supernatural world. However, getting ready like this took a lot of more time than I had expected, so I was running a little bit late. I thanked myself for declining Jason's off picking me up, because if I had accepted it he would be running late too, and that would be unforgiving. Cole stopped the car by the main entrance of the castle and opened the door for me. I really try to stop him from doing that, but he swats my hands away like a ninja and glares at me. Yeah, Teddy Bear Carl knows how to glare. Enjoy yourself, miss. Then he bowed slightly. I nodded and smiled. Thank you, I whispered back. He nodded back and waited for me to enter the castle before leaving. One thing that I immediately noticed was the amount of people that were reunited inside of the ballroom. That didn't even look completely full. As I took more steps forward, people started turning their heads and stopped talking. They just stared at me. The room was silent by now, but only lasted a few moments because a few meters ahead me there stood the future king. And he looked so good and so attractive that I could feel myself melting on my spot. I quickly looked away with a blush on my cheeks. He kept walking towards me until I finally met his eyes, and he let out a gasp. You look absolutely stunning and beautiful, like a goddess, Jason said softly. I froze at the mention of the word goddess, and me in the same sentence, but I quickly brushed it off and my cheeks warmed once again, understanding his compliment. Thank you. You look really stunning and handsome, like a god, I played along even though that deep in my mind I was actually going crazy at how much of a high heavenly figure he looked like. He chuckled and kissed me on the forehead, causing those butterflies to move in my tummy like crazy and the warm tingling feeling that he left in my forehead. "Come with me. I want you to meet my parents," he said while taking my hand delicately. I started panicking. His parents know me, not as Castiel Jones but as a creature that stopped a demon. I knew that this was going to happen sooner or later, so I tried to calm myself down and not make the situation any worse while trying to find a reasonable solution. I looked around everyone, and noticed that they were all looking at us, adding even more pressure and nerves on the already complicated situation. Step by step we walked through the crowd that opened space for us to walk to the royal seats. Gossip followed us everywhere and different speculations about who was the girl with the soon-to-be king. I shrugged it off and kept walking hand in hand with Jason. We finally arrived to the other side of the ballroom, and there stood the queen, the king, and a little girl. The little girl. "Mother, sister, I officially introduce you my mate, Castiel," he said, gesturing to me with one hand and holding mine with the other. Then he turned towards me and gestured to his family. "Castiel, I present you my family. My father, my mother, and my little sister. It's nice to finally meet you, Castiel," Jason's father said while holding a hand out to me to shake. I gracefully took his hand and shook it. "It's nice to meet you too, sir," I replied with a smile. He didn't remember me. A feeling of relief filled me in. "Please call me Tobias. This is my mate and wife Sophia, and that's my daughter Madison," he said, gesturing to each of them with a gentle, kind look. I smiled in return, muttering a small okay. "It's great to meet you, darling," Sophia said while opening her arms for a hug. I happily wrapped my arms around her, but when we made contact, she stiffened. It was barely even 2 seconds of contact and she felt something. When we broke apart, I looked at her face and stiffened. Wolf eyes. Her yellow wolf eyes were on show, staring at me, studying me, watching my every move. Jason wrapped a protective arm around my waist and pulled me to his chest. Sophia quickly shook her face and looked around, noticing everyone's alert mode. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you. My wolf came out because she recognized a bond with you." Everyone relaxed and pretended that nothing happened. Everyone except me, because I know exactly what bond she's talking about. The night that I saved them, she hugged me, and the caring hug created a bond. A bond that can expose me. It's not like I don't trust Jason to know about me, but I don't want to take any risks. Besides, no one can know who I am. That's the main rule. It's a bit hypocrite of me to know his secret without him knowing mine. Yes, absolutely. The feeling of guilt eats me alive every day, but I can't tell him. Not yet, at least. Madison, the little girl, was with her wolf eyes as well and jumped on me. That sudden move made everyone to start to try to take her off me in a protective way. But the thing is, she wasn't harming me. She was hugging me and sniffing me. I laughed and placed a small kiss on her forehead. I knelt down to her height and pulled her into another hug while whispering in her ear. "It's good to see you too." No one heard me, but they all stopped to watch the scene. I simply winked at her while putting my pointing finger on my lips as secret sign when no one was watching. She smiled and winked back while going back to stand beside her mum. "Have we met before?" "Because both our wolves seem to know you," Sophia said suspiciously. "Maybe," I answered vaguely with a secretive smile while Madison giggled. Jason, who was watching everything with a frown, finally snapped out of his gaze and wrapped his arm around my waist again. "We will meet with the elders now, if you excuse us," he said while turning us to another direction. We walked for a while until we were out of hearing reach, and Jason spoke up again. "What was that all about?" he asked while looking at me in the eye. I smiled mischievously at him and shrugged innocently. "I don't know, what are you talking about?" I said with an eloquent smile. He was about to speak but got interrupted. "What a big surprise to see you here, Miss Morningstar." I looked to the source of the voice and froze. 23, Jason. Me and Castiel turned around to see who the source of the voice was, but the stiff posture of my mate told me that she had a clue of who it was. I came face to face with Elder Clarence. He is a highly and powerful werewolf with demon abilities. Some people say that it was Satan himself who gave him such privileges with the deal, A dangerous deal. Who was idiotic enough to make a deal with the devil? Apparently Clarence was, however, nothing bad has happened to him. Not yet, at least. I was so caught up in thinking about his life choices that I didn't notice the staring contest that him and Castiel were holding. I was confused and was about to open my mouth to intervene until his words settled in my brain. "Miss Morningstar," he had said. "Morningstar?" I asked, interrupting their interaction. "It's my dad's last name," she replied. "Then how come your last name is Jones?" I asked, shocked at this new information. "Security matters. I was born with Morningstar as my last name, but since I moved out to here I changed it," she confessed. I looked at her even more shocked. What else is she hiding? She gave me a meaningful look, imploring with her eyes to not ask more stuff. I nodded at her discreetly. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," Clarence stated, but his eyes said otherwise. I narrowed my eyes at him. "Tell your father that I'll visit him soon," he said to my mate with a dark smirk. "He's probably already aware intentions to visit him, don't worry," she replied with a smirk of her own, making his smug expression fall. "Congratulations on your title, my king," he said while turning to me, trying to shrug off what Castiel had said to him. "Thank you, Elder Clarence. I see that you already know my mate, your future queen," I replied to him while protectively putting my arm around Castiel's waist. Maybe stumbled, satisfied. He forced a smile. "I won't bother you any further, so I'll be on my way," he said before bowing respectfully. I nodded at him before turning around and keep walking, questions about the encounter running in my head. That was until I felt a warm hand full of tingles on my arm. "Are you okay?" Castiel asked, concerned. I sighed before nodding. "Yeah. I just feel like, I don't know, like you are hiding something from me," I confessed. Her eyes widened before clouding over with sadness and guilt. "Trust me, if I could, I would tell you everything. You will have to trust me," she said softly while looking at me directly in the eyes. I smiled lightly at her. "Come on, don't think about this anymore. Tonight is your night and I don't want to ruin it with these kind of things," she said with a smile. I smiled back at her. "Yeah, you are right." She slowly and hesitantly leaned up and gave me a soft kiss on my cheek. I stood there paralyzed with tingles and happiness from my mate's intimate touch. My smile turned into a full shit-eating grin while looking down at her flushed cheeks and bright eyes. I softly touched her cheek before caressing it lovingly, slowly leaning down to kiss her, until a voice interrupted us. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Mom and Dad said it was time, Madison said while smiling mischievously as, "Perfect timing, Madison." I stepped away from Castiel with a groan before I grabbed her hand and followed Madison towards the stage. People coming and leaving with small talks, greetings and look. I was getting a little bit agitated, and my wolf wouldn't stop pacing around inside my mind as we came closer to the place where I'd receive my crown, my power and my title. My mate must have felt something was wrong because she suddenly stopped walking, making me stop as well. She turned her face to me and smiled softly, and getting a strand of hair out of my face and pushed it behind my left ear, letting her hand resting against my cheek. "I'll be right here for you," she whispered. I'd never had imagined that such simple little words would have such a big impact on me, her eyes looking straight into mine, assuring me that her words were truthful, her touch calming down my breathing and erratic heart, and her sweet voice telling me how much she cared for me, her mate, her other half. And it was in that moment that I knew that I'd never let her go. In that moment I knew I would do anything to protect her, to make her happy. It's actually scary the things that I would for her without thinking twice. My heart swelled and I decided to remove her hand that was on my cheek and hold it in front of my lips, lovingly kissing each of her fingers before I grabbed her chin, never once breaking the eye contact. Leaning closer until our lips were almost touching, I watched how she fluttered her eyes close. Copying her movements, I closed my eyes to before ever so gently brushing my lips against hers. 24. Castiel. As soon as his lips met mine, an explosion of emotions erupted inside me. I'd never been kissed before. I didn't know what to do, so I simply followed my instincts and moved my lips back. Tasting him, his soft lips the right wetness of his mouth as his teeth ever so softly touched my lower lip. After a few seconds we pulled apart and I looked at him in the eyes with a blush endearing my cheeks. "Hi," I said, looking at him shyly from my lashes. "Hi," he grinned with his eyes full of care. Then Madison interrupted us again and hurried Jason to move faster, to which he didn't reply. He just kept gazing at me with his deep blue orbs. "We should probably go," I replied, looking at the ground, suddenly feeling guilty for taking his attention away from his duty. "We should, but we will definitely talk about this later though," he said with a small grin, to which I muttered a small okay before starting walking towards the stage. After a few minutes of walking through the ballroom filled with people from different corners of the world, we finally arrived to the big stage that was fully set up and waiting for Jason to jump on. "I've got to go now. Will you be okay? I reserved a place for you on the first row, next to the elders." He rushed, worried. "Go. I'll be fine. I'm here for you. Go, your kingdom awaits you, remember." I reassured him and teased him at the same time. He took a deep breath and pecked my lips softly before caressing my right cheek, letting his finger trail to the side of my neck, every touch of his leaving a trail of goosebumps behind. "Be safe," Jason whispered before leaving towards the long deep red curtain that hid a staircase that led to the stage. Watching him go before turning on my heels and walking towards the seats that had a small golden tack resting on top of the velvet cushioned chairs. As Jason had mentioned, my seat was on the first row, right in the middle, allowing me to see clearly what was going on the podium in front of me. As soon as I seated, a dark figure appeared new to me. That was quite the show. His deep and powerful voice said, "You could have looked away. Not my fault that you are an old pervert." I replied back, irritated. "Don't take it the wrong way. I was just surprised to see the big and powerful angel on fire get so defenseless around a boy. It was almost as if you had melted. Pardon my irony." He chuckled bitterly. "What do you want, Clarence? I thought that your issues were to be solved with my father, not with me." I sighed, tired of his fake chat. "Little old me. Nothing really," he said mischievously. "I can't, however, say the same thing about young Melinda. Did you know that she's in the pack dungeons? What an awful treatment, don't you think?" He continued, looking at me from the corner of his eyes. His words made instantly freeze. "Melinda was arrested. And most importantly, why? It's a shame, really. Everything she did was with the best interest at heart. Genuinely." He kept on going. "Attention, everyone. It's with a great honor that I greet all of you in this wonderful night. First of all, I'd like to welcome you into my kingdom and thank you all for being present on such an important event as this one." Tobias, Jason's father, started his speech, but I soon tuned him out when a certain pest beside me whispered, "Would you like to know what she did this morning, Star?" I nodded, not taking my eyes off the stage. "Let's just say that she messed with someone important to the young wolf. You should ask him, honestly. I don't even know how I dared to tell you all of this." His whisper was dripping with sarcasm and distaste. "And now I present you the new king of the werewolf world and alpha of the royal pack, my only son, Jason Silver." The voice of the old king boomed through the ball before a thunder of applause as he erupted in the huge and sophisticated space. My eyes followed Jason's figure through every movement he made. The way his eyes shined. His smile was nervous but reassuring at the same time. His smile seemed to grow when the heavy-looking golden crown was placed on top of his head. I don't know for how long I was staring at him, but it seemed like he felt my gaze on him and his eyes started to search in the crowd until we finally locked eyes. I mouthed him a small congratulations, to which he smiled harder before mouthing a thank you while walking towards the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all enjoying yourselves on this special night. I'll cut short this speech because I know most of you are tired and want to head to your respective dining halls." The crowd laughed at his small joke before urging him to go on. "I just want to take a moment to really appreciate and thank your presence on one of the most important days of my life. I'm your king now, and I'm aware that with that title, many other responsibilities come along with it. But here's my promise to thee. I will do my best to not let you down. I promise to protect your lives and the ones that you care the most. And above all, I want you to be able to trust me as your king. We are a great species by ourselves, however we are even greater when together. Therefore more powerful when we trust one another. I know I'm young and I know that I'll make mistakes, but I will always make sure that I'm following my promises. And I know that because not only do I have an incredible family to support me, but a beautiful and strong mate by my side. Once again, I'm grateful for you to hear me. I hope you enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you. Everyone was applauding and cheering at the new king. There wasn't a single dull face in the ballroom. Except, of course, for the annoying elder that sat next to me. That was beautiful. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I might have shed a tear or two, Clarence said sarcastically. I simply rolled my eyes to him and started to get up to look for Jason. I got up, patted the skirt of my dress gracefully and started walking towards the curtain. From where? Seconds later, Jason emerged with his dad and a few other men that I didn't recognize. I met his eyes and smiled at him before speeding my footsteps towards him. Everything was going great until an old rugged hand turned me around and whispered in my ear, 27 days. I looked at Clarence confused before noticing his focus on the person behind me. I peeked over my shoulder and noticed Jason, now alone, staring at us. I looked back at Clarence, but he was gone, leaving me and Jason by ourselves in the middle of the gigantic room. What did he want? Jason asked curiously and concerned. I was about to tell him when Clarence's words rang inside my head, you should ask him honestly. So I decided against my initial thought and replied calmly, nothing. Nothing at all.